So welcome, Franny, to Winchester Wellness Meets interview. Thank you so much for participating. We've got Franny Benali, MBE here, who had a successful football career for Southampton Football Club, more than 300 appearances. And I think I saw the other day you said it was 32 years ago this year that you made your debut for Southampton. You've then gone on to run between every single Premier League ground in the country in 2014 for charity. You've run more than a marathon and cycled more than 75 kilometres every day between 44 grounds in the country for 2 weeks in 2016. And then you decided to undertake 7 Ironman distance triathlons in 1 week in 2019. So you've raised over £1 million for Cancer Research UK. And it's no wonder you've been awarded some great awards such as the Freedom of the City in Southampton and of course your MBE this year. Congratulations. You really are a true hero.
Oh, thanks. So, it's a real pleasure to join you.
Thank you. So to start off, how did you first get into football?
Football for me, Lucy, as a young boy was pretty much like most kids, I think, back in the day when it was playing football in the street with your friends, in the playground with your mates and up the park really. And it was like that for many years up until I was about 13 when I joined my first club, Windsor United, in the Sunday Tyro League. And very quickly from there, within a year, sort of got spotted by Saints and was playing in those days as a striker or a left winger and a striker. So very different to my career, throughout my Saints career at Southampton as a pro, as a left fullback. So yeah, it was just always a passion and a love of mine that I can remember going back to my youngest memories, really, that I always wanted to play football, had a dream of becoming a footballer one day, and I guess was very grateful to have been able to have done that for so many years.
Oh, fantastic. Well done. And did you encounter any kind of injuries along the way in your professional football career?
Yeah, I guess, there's setbacks in any walk of life, isn't there? Any job you do, or those challenges that we all face. And I guess as a professional sportsman, it's one of those things that can be a big impact on sort of playing and how you approach the game and what you're able to do. Although having said that, injuries for me throughout the course of my career weren't that bad, to be honest. They tended to be impact injuries or little pulls or strains. I broke a few bones, had a few operations and things, but nothing that I would say almost like maybe joint wise or, I remember hernias being a big thing sort of back in my time. A lot of the players were picking up hernias and often had to have operations for those. But yeah, thankfully, touch wood, I seemed to sort of get through a career without too many problems and not missing too many games through injury as well, which was great. But again, you'd know only too well that how it was back in the sort of 80s when I first came into playing full-time football. I guess I was part of that transition when money started coming into the sport through the Premiership as it was then, and Premier League, but also how like sports science and things like that, and how it went from literally being one physiotherapist looking after the entire full-time staff. So that would have been the first team reserves, any of the apprentices, youth team players, to what it has become now, where it's like a small army of people, taking care of the players as it is nowadays, which is obviously a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. So you actually saw that transition from where it was quite low medical kind of support to building through your career.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It quite often brings a smile to my face when you see, I mean, it's amazing now. I mean, the care for players, not just in matches or any elite sport, I guess. There's that support network around it. There's that duty of care to the players. We're looking at things like concussion things a lot more seriously now, aren't we? And things like that, and the number of substitutes that teams can make. That's a big debate at the moment, to try and sort of take that workload off players. But my mind quickly flips back to when I was coming through my experiences as a footballer, in the 80s and 90s, that you know, the mentality then was very much like, you know, cortisone was used quite a lot to get through either an injury or a game. And obviously we know more about that now and the impact that that could have sort of long term. But I guess those sort of things were things that you did. You know, if you had a head injury, you know, you might have potentially been concussed but had a big cut on your head. And you know, in those days, you could almost be playing with a blood drenched shirt. And you know, as long as your wound was patched up briefly, then you wouldn't have to go off to get it stitched until maybe half time or full time. So the game's changed massively, and that sort of mindset, I think, as well. You know, as a player, I think not just myself, but everyone of the era. You know, if you got hurt or you got injured, there was that mindset and mentality not to show that you were hurt, because it was almost like a sign of weakness to your opponent. Whereas obviously now we see players rolling around without, you know, hardly any real reason. And I think there's been lots of changes like that, you know, in the game.
And then for yourself, do you feel like the increase in medical support behind the scenes, and perhaps an increase in, like you say, the sports science and recovery side of things, did you see a benefit yourself in that, in terms of coming back from injury or staying injury free?
As I mentioned, Lucy, there was that sort of transition that I saw, and how the importance of, you know, the sports psychology side started coming in, and nutrition side, which, you know, when I started out, it was quite literally non-existent. And then that developed over the years to when I sort of was retiring. That then sort of included probably a small team of physiotherapists, a couple of full-time masseurs rather, and two chefs cooking food for us, a little bit of breakfast and lunch, and that's gone on again now to a whole new level, knowing the setup, and certainly at Premier League level, and you know, sort of certainly going down to March with at Southampton, seeing the setup now that Southampton Football Club have is just absolutely mind-blowing. You know, every time I sort of pop out there, I just get blown away by the facilities that are there, the support network that's there, the science that is around, you know, sort of things like looking after players now, but the medical side, the fitness side. I would love to be a player now, put it that way. You know, I think in some ways with my outlook and the way I approach my training and my sport and my lifestyle, I was maybe in some ways sort of ahead of my time. I was maybe more like a little bit of an outlook of a player in today's game, you know, the way that they sort of take care of themselves. But I would love to have had that support network behind me to have supported me as a player when I was playing.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, and then talking about the science, I know you've been in with kind of Cancer Research UK and looked at some of the science behind, you know, getting towards treatments and cures with your charity work. So when did you first kind of, you know that you wanted to take on these ultra endurance challenges for charity?
Yeah, you know, fitness was always such a huge part, Lucy, for me throughout my career. And, you know, I realized even as a teenager that there were certain things that I would have to maybe do to make up for a certain maybe lack of ability. And I think that manifested itself in the fact that I've never ever drunk to this day. I've never been drunk in my life, which to a lot of people would seem really strange, but that's just how sort of focused and determined I was to sort of reach that level of the sport that I wanted to play at, and then stay there for obviously sort of a number of years. So that's just continued into a normal lifestyle for me now. And beyond my playing career, you know, I wanted to still keep in shape, wanted to still keep fit. I ran the London Marathon, I think, in 2006, and really enjoyed that. And maybe that just planted a little seed that I then over the years started to become intrigued by the ultra endurance side of things. And you know, we all can go online and see these incredible things that are out there in the world and what people are doing. And you know, I really started becoming intrigued to think, well, you know, I don't have that goal of playing week to week as a footballer anymore. And you know, that was always a real structured sort of training regime for me. So just training for the sake of keeping fit, I had no real goal.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if I pick a challenge to work towards, that will maybe help me focus on some things, and started to come up with what I could do. And that manifested itself in what you mentioned at the beginning of running through every Premier League football stadium in what was about 1,000 miles in 3 weeks, and I was running up to 50 miles a day every day for those 21 days. So it was maybe setting the bar a little bit too high to begin with, but it was an incredible experience.
Yeah. And what kind of systems did you have in place for your recovery and injury management with these challenges?
Well, I guess naively for a long period, from a training perspective and also sort of like the medical care, I knew I would need someone to look after me on the challenge, but I was quite naive. I had no idea what this kind of event was going to involve, on the impact on me personally from a physical and mental perspective. But I quickly realised that I would need a team around me. I'd come from a team background in football, but even though these challenges were very much sort of like an individual challenge, it was also a huge team challenge as well. And I had my family on board, my wife Karen, son and daughter Luke and Kenzie. They were such a huge part of it as well. But I realised I had to start bringing in some key skills to build a team to enable me to complete the challenge ultimately. And that included a route manager, a sports therapist who come on board, Kelly, who looked after me on every single one of the 3 challenges that I did over the recent years. And having that specific care was crucial. I would have ice baths as part of my recovery regime. Naturally, the nutrition was a huge part, getting calories in and the right kind of food and supplements. I'd be taking some things like general vitamins. There was some other bits. I'm trying to remember what they were called now. There was a probiotic I was taking for some good gut health, because I was going to be taking all kinds of sweet energy gels, and you can quickly get sick of those. So it was trying to look after myself as well as possible with the things that I was putting in my body, but also the external care and massages and treatment of any injuries that I'd need as and when they cropped up.
It's brilliant. It sounds like you really do your research on, how you can get the best out of yourself, and you just look to go and get that information from the experts. So no wonder you've achieved all that you've achieved. What drives you to keep pushing these boundaries? Because we see you do something incredible, and then all of a sudden you announce that you're going to do something even more endurance or incredible. What keeps driving you?
It's a couple of things really, Lucy. You mentioned raising the £1 million for Cancer Research UK. That was a huge part of taking the challenges on as well. I thought, yes, there was that element of I wanted to do something that put me outside of my comfort zone, and to really find, almost sounds a little bit sadistic in a way, but I almost wanted to find my threshold and my breaking point and what I was capable of doing. And I guess these challenges, I was almost trying to search for that to a degree, to see what I was actually capable of achieving. Having done the 3 now, I've certainly found my breaking point. And certainly no rush to go back there anytime soon. But it's incredible. I've learned a huge amount of what I can, not just personally sort of look to go beyond, my what I thought was my maximum limits, but also what everybody is capable of, I truly believe. But the fundraising side was a huge part as well. And I said from day one, I tried to raise £1 million for the charity. And because at the end of the first challenge, we managed to raise just over £250,000, which was incredible. But it still was a long way short of the £1 million. So hence, we had to come up with another challenge that then obviously turned into becoming a 3rd challenge to try and reach that goal.
Fantastic. And I do believe you've just run a marathon in your garden as well through lockdown number 1. How was that for you?
That literally came out of nowhere in a very short space of time, Lucy. I was in no real fit state to take on a marathon, least of all in my garden on what turned out to be on a treadmill. Under the first lockdown, there was all of a sudden we were seeing the impacts that lockdown was having on charities very early on, and their fundraising events and things, but also the incredible work the NHS were doing. And I thought, well, maybe I could just do my little bit by throwing myself into a challenge like that. And I think the most I'd run in a little bit of training around about that time was 6 miles. So certainly a long way off sort of any kind of real marathon preparation, and I'd certainly never ran that far on a treadmill before, but managed to get through it, managed to raise, you know, quite a bit of money for NHS charities together, which was incredible, and but also Saints Foundation as well, which is close to my heart.
Oh, congratulations, well done. And then just to finish off with your wealth of experience, what would you say to someone who is thinking about starting football, running, any of the sports that you kind of participate in, or physical activity?
Well, physical activity has been a massive part of my life since such a young age, and I would naturally encourage anybody to be active, try and live a healthy lifestyle. It's not just being physically active or finding an interest or a pursuit that you've got a passion for. Obviously, I pursued the football side to a professional level, and that was incredible. Obviously, it's difficult to reach that level, but if anyone's got any dreams or ambitions of trying to achieve something, you know, my advice would be just to go for it and give it your best shot. There are sacrifices to make, whether it's, you know, somebody's Everest could be just climbing a flight of stairs. You know, it doesn't have to be a huge, crazy challenge. But having goals, I think, for each and every one of us is an important thing. Stepping outside of a comfort zone, I've certainly learned in recent years, is not just a scary, but also such a rewarding thing as well, because it's incredible to see what you can achieve when you do step outside those sort of boundaries, and you know, just sort of giving it your best shot, really, but surrounding yourself with the right people as well. You know, there's a lot of negativity out in the world, and you know, I had many people saying to me it's impossible to do the challenges that I took on in recent years, and you know, it's difficult to sometimes stay focused and concentrate on what you're trying to achieve, but with enough focus, determination and belief, and surrounding yourself with the right people, quite literally anything is possible.
Oh, thank you, Franny. There's some really key points that I think anyone can take on board for life. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. No, absolute pleasure to join you. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to catch up face to face rather than over this technology like we are now.